Is it like
Live.
Oh, it's live. Hey. Um Hello. Welcome to Time to Say Goodbye. It is the 23rd of December. Tyler, I think you're out of there's like a little like grid in the middle, and I think that you're not in it. I think you need to move a little bit to the left.
All right,
Hold
I'm in
on.
the grid now.
Let me put the link out for this thing. But welcome everybody. This is I think the third time we're doing a live. And uh we wanted to we were going to do this 45 minutes ago, but we couldn't because we have some news for everybody, which is that Tyler is now a second time dad. Congratulations. That's why he wasn't on last week. And
Thank you, man.
if you want to make any type of announcement within, protecting your own privacy, please do so. But yeah, I mean, obviously I've known that you are going to have this baby for a long time. So congratulations about
thank you,
that.
man.
And it's good to have you back on the show.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Apparently on this show, we have a 4-day paternity leave.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about babies this age is they sleep constantly. But yeah, we had a baby girl, so now we have one of each, which is cool. So yeah, no, we are very excited. Thanks, man.
What's the name?
Mabel.
Mabel Harper.
Yeah.
Do you do? I don't know this. You don't do the hyphenated name for the?
No.
Okay.
My wife's last name was both hard to pronounce and hard to spell, and so yeah, she was very stoked to get rid of it.
I love that. I love that you put it in the past tense. There it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming to our live. And I don't know how this thing is advertised or whatever. Is there like an email that goes out or whatever? But
who's to say?
Hopefully, we can edit this part out at the beginning when the podcast goes up. But I wanted to have you on because it's been 2 weeks now, and we haven't talked about any of this Epstein stuff. And last week when we had Leaf on and we had Celine, we just talked about AI and books and stuff. So this is all very fresh. Like every Epstein thing that has happened in the past 2 weeks is now beyond us, right? Like we haven't talked about it at all. So like in your own haze, right? Because I remember this, right? You're in this panic because you're just like, when is this baby going to arrive? Do I have the go bag ready? Do I have everything ready? And then your wife is obviously one going through a lot more than, than we are.
Got to keep your own complaints to a minimum,
Yeah, exactly. And so, how have you sort of processed all of this through the haze of like, having a child, not you having a child, but, support for a child.
No, I mean, mostly, honestly, I just have like a very like brief spurts where I can, be on my phone or doing things other than, attending to a newborn. So it is, I just am receiving these sort of like schizophrenic bursts of information about Epstein and the files and which I've seen a lot of them now at this point. I mean, especially the ones that came out last night. It is, it's remarkable stuff,
Just to play a little like stupid sports talk radio type of game, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most like, oh shit, and 1 being, I don't know, I'm a little bit disappointed in what we've seen. Where would you put the releases so far?
Yeah, so the first one, which Trump was conspicuously absent from, with the exception of, I think, a couple photos that they like forgot to redact or remove, which then they removed post hoc, I think. The first one, I mean, it was obviously very damning to the folks who were in the files and people like Bill Clinton, but I also thought it was like really damning for Trump as well, because his absence was extraordinarily conspicuous. So, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was pretty shocking. I guess I don't know what they're supposed to do. Like from his point of view, I mean, what is he supposed to do? On the one hand, if he doesn't release stuff that would sort of implicate him in any way, that's extremely suspicious. And if he does, that is probably damning. And so the first batch, I don't know. I found it pretty astounding. I guess this is a naive thing to say, but more upsetting than I bargained for. Like some of the photos and the children's soccer note and Epstein with toddlers and stuff was a lot darker than I anticipated. I don't know why. I mean, what else would you expect from a notorious pedophile? But they were upsetting. But the second batch released in seemingly the twilight hours last night, Trump appears a bunch, and some of it, I mean, is pretty bad. The DOJ obviously tried to get in front of it by tweeting, I believe, that these are all like salacious rumors, but we're releasing this in the interest of transparency or whatever. But yeah, those are, I mean, some of the stuff in there, it seems quite damning. I don't know. What do you think, Jay?
Right, like we have in the second batch, we have specific allegations that Trump and Epstein were raping teenage girls. We have very specific references to Trump, um, doing all sorts of things, including possibly being involved in some sorts of cover-ups, right?
Mhm.
That would involve like violent criminal behavior. We have uh, much more context than we had before but the story isn't new. The story just seems to be, or what we started to understand over the last few months, is that these dudes are very good friends.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't some associate, right? It wasn't some guy that he went to. It seems like there are some people who are very close to Epstein. These include Larry Summers, right? The news
The
came out that,
executor of his estate.
yeah, that's fucking crazy. Like, if
Hilarious.
you're Larry Summers, like, don't you just say no at some point, right? Because this is like post all the allegations
It's
coming out.
2014.
20,
Yeah.
everything is kind of known. And if you're Larry Summers and you're friends with this dude, you know what he's doing. Like, I'm sorry, there's no
Well,
doubt in my
executor of
mind
his
that
estate
they
would
already
provide a
know.
lot
And
of
then you're
information about his, like,
right, right,
money, and
right.
so they're clearly much closer than we even knew,
Yeah, I would not. I mean, I don't know who is going to be
Like,
the
you
exec.
wouldn't make me the executor of your estate, and I
Absolutely
talk to
not
you all the
even
time.
close, and I actually trust you more than most media people, that I know in the industry. Like, you're like a solid 9. Like, I would drop my kids off with you and your wife.
Thank you, sir.
We've only met once in person, I would still
True.
do it. Every other person in media, I would never do. I'd be like, "No," maybe, like, I don't know. Actually, there's a few, there's, like, a handful, but,
Yeah.
like, most of them, I'd just be like, it's cool, I'm just gonna
I'll figure it out.
yeah, I'm put out a water dish and and a box of saltines, and I think they'll be, better off, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, um, that's like they're what we started to understand is how close friends they are, right?
Mhm.
And how much they relied on each other, how much they confided in each other. And at that point, it's very difficult, I think, for a person in the public to come away from all of that and just be like, oh, well, there's nothing to see, or he didn't
Yeah.
know, right? And
Yep.
I just keep coming back to this like very strange document that happened before the Epstein files even released. It was during some of the email dumps that the
Mm.
the DNC, or Democratic Party, was putting out. And it was like this strange email where it was from Jeffrey Epstein, from what, and now we know what was his name, JE Vacation or whatever the hell his email address.
JEE vacation, I
Yeah,
think, or
G
JE vacation?
Vacation or something. It sounds like a racial slur or
It
something. But
does. Oh.
he went he says, like, well, if Trump says something, then he will go public, or he will like tell Ghislaine to stop,
Yeah.
right? And that really has stuck in my head, this, like, he will tell Ghislaine to stop, because in some ways, it's exculpatory of Trump, right? It
Mhm.
means that he might have known, but that he, like, didn't really exactly approve of it, and that if he was pushed enough, that maybe even though he was turning a blind eye, he would tell Ghislaine to stop, right?
Yeah.
Um, Ghislaine, I'm sorry. But at the other time, it's just like, well, he obviously knew then, right?
Yeah.
And like, I can't quite parse that. And I would say that everything that I have seen in the files, and I've taken a long time looking through everything, is processed through that one lens, right? Like,
Yeah.
did he actually know? How involved was he? I think at this point, I have almost no doubt that he at least knew what Epstein and Ghislaine were doing, right? I don't have
How could
any
you
doubt
not?
about that.
Like, dude,
And
everyone who has a cursory interaction with Epstein is like, he was surrounded by a harem of young girls
yeah.
24/7. There's, like, no way you didn't know?
Right, and his house was full of, now what we know, and we knew a little bit of this before, but, like, now what we really know is that his entire house was filled with all this, like, photos of these girls, and that these girls were always around, and that, like, and, like, one of the most horrible photos that we see is, like, Jeffrey Epstein just, like, kind of posing like he's, I don't know, on a divan in, like, some sort of Rubenesque period portrait or something like that. I guess he's not fit, but, like, whatever. And then there's like a
Spiritually
foot
fat.
of like what looks like an 8-year-old girl
Yeah.
right off camera, and you're just like, like, he doesn't have any fucking kids. Like, he's not like, he doesn't have like a sister that he's bringing over and be like, hey, you want to come to my creepy fucking pedophile house with my niece? Like, right?
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
nothing like that
Sure.
going on. Like, you can always assume the worst for who these people are and what was done to them. And, like, if you went to that house all the time, like, I'm sorry, it's just like, and if you were interacting with this guy as much as Trump was, there's no way that, like, you didn't at least know. And that's what I think that's what the preponderance of evidence right now is showing.
Yeah.
And
But
you
dude,
don't
like,
have to
even
even believe any of these, like, leaks that are coming out to get to that point?
yeah, and even if you didn't see him with any girls that were obviously underage. I mean, going to this guy's weird, like, sex dungeon palatial estate where there's constantly like 18 and 19-year-olds everywhere, like, that is like, you would not hang out with someone like that. Like, even if you didn't know anything about all the underage stuff, you'd be like, oh, this guy's like a fucking creep, you know? So yeah, it's just, I find it impossible that any people who had regular dealings with him didn't know what was going on, you know?
Yeah, look, if you invited me to your house, Tyler, and I went over, right? And there was like 2 or 3 unexplained 18-year-old children there,
Who don't speak
and
English, who like to speak Russian. You
I'm
know?
not yeah, I mean, this feels a little racist from you,
It's not
Tyler.
racist. You would wonder, I don't speak Russian. You would
The
what
illegals
these
are
Russian girls doing there?
Um, I would just fucking leave, like, I would just
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
creeped out, and I think I would just leave, so, like, that's what the part that I don't quite understand is just like, alright, well, we have this, like, who doesn't get that sense, "Oh, wait, who are these teenage kids around?" You
Yeah.
know? Like, "Why are they here?" Jeff, I know you're a bit of a playboy and man about town, but these are young children here, like, have you sponsored a basketball team? Like, what are they here for? I'll just tell you a story. Like, I had a friend and we were relatively close, right? And and then he started dating somebody much younger, right? To the point where it was nothing illegal. It was
Yeah, yeah.
still like I think it was within the realm of like acceptability, but that some people would kind of cringe about it, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Unseemly.
and I just like stopped hanging out with him
Yeah.
because I was just like, I don't want to deal with this, And that was like that was like a relationship like that
Yeah.
went on for years, And like I just don't understand this world where you can be a guy who shows up at this house, like Woody Allen, for example, or
Mhm,
Sergey Brin, right? It seems like these types of people are always at the house, right?
mhm.
That's what we know from the photo, especially Woody Allen. Bill Clinton seems to have also been at the house a lot. We can talk about that in a little bit. But then you
Wild
have
Bill.
like that part, if you just put yourself in that position, there's no way that you can excuse any of this and say that, oh, all these people didn't know, right? If
Yeah.
I walked in your house, there's like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid, right? The first question I'd be like, who's that? like who wouldn't ask that? And but I would not assume, Tyler, that you're like a pedophile.
Right, right,
But
right.
just out of curiosity, I'd be like, oh, is
What's up with
that your
this?
niece? Is that your nephew? Like, what's going on? Why do you have a kid living at your house? Anyway,
Dude, I mean, something that's stuck with me for years, and I've talked to other faculty about this who say the same thing. I taught my first college class, I think when I was 23. I started my PhD program when I was 22, and maybe I was 24. I was young. And you get this like big, like, you have to go through all this like harassment training and everything. And it's like, obviously it's like, don't sleep with students, blah, 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 blah. And so I had done this harassment training like literally minutes before I taught my first class because I do everything last minute. And these kids trickle in. You don't understand if unless you interact with 18-year-olds on a regular basis, how young an 18-year-old
oh
looks. Like
yeah, yeah.
they're fucking children. And I think if you don't interact with 18, 19, 20-year-olds as part of your job on a regular basis, like, oh, well, they're an adult. It's like, no, they don't look like adults. They don't talk like adults. They are legally adults. You can send them off to war. But like, it's just like, and even as a 24-year-old, I was like, like, what kind of person, like, what kind of professor or older person is like trying to sleep with these children, And so, like, yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, I totally agree with you. If I showed up at a friend's house and they were like, there was like an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old there, I'd be like, this is like, you're not doing anything criminal, but I don't like want to be party to any of this, like,
Also, everyone always knows. That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing. You always know. Like, I had a professor in college who, whatever. Like, I mean, if you want to go back and whatever, I had a professor in undergrad, and he was kind of a creep, right?
Mhm.
And he was at some point. It wasn't like I think back on it, and it's just like weird. But like, we didn't
Yeah.
really like. He would send me very inappropriate emails and stuff like that, and then um, and he's not there anymore, right? In fact, I think he's passed away. So whatever. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but like he would send like weird emails and
Mhm.
like whatever. And at some point, but we all knew,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't like we were unaware of what was happening because we were like 20 years old, 21 years old, right?
Mhm.
Um, and at some point, we went to his house and there was like a 18-year-old boy living there, and we're just like, who's this? You know? And we fucking knew what was going on, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just like, Like, I just don't understand this world where people are like, oh, they were just associates, right? Nobody really knows how deep they were into it. Just like every person who is an adult, like when they see a
See what's
child
up.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's outrageous. So, um, the other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of the Epstein files, though, was Bill Clinton,
Yeah.
right? Now, the context that I want to put around it is, and I think that it is actually a necessary caveat, even though like you and I probably don't really like Bill Clinton very much, is that look, obviously this is politically motivated in a huge
Of course.
sense, right? Like
Yeah.
everything that they could find with Bill Clinton in there, they put in there. If you told me in 2 years that they have found that all these Bill Clinton images are AI and that like they're not real, I would not be shocked, right? I
Sure.
would not be shocked that the Trump administration would make shit up and put them in the files about Bill Clinton because Trump hates Bill Clinton and he's the biggest whale that they can put into this whole
Yeah.
thing and make it seem bad, right? So, but Bill Clinton does seem to have been really good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, right? There are some really bad photos of him in that
Yeah.
place. It seems like he was on the plane at the very least, right? Like it just
And
seems
on the
like there's
plane doing Lolita plane things is the
right,
implication.
right.
Not
And
not just
so
like yeah, yeah.
my question to you is like, like what should be done about the Bill Clinton part of this?
Look, I mean, I don't think the Clintons should have any role in American public life going forward. I think when they make appearances, they should be shouted down. I mean, they knew what was going on. Bill's on the plane. The images of him with, at minimum, a barely, what seems to be a sort of barely legal young girl sitting on his lap. I mean, extremely
Right,
disturbing.
that is disturbing. All that, yeah.
Disturbing. And so I think they need to be shamed out of public life. Like, there's no excuse for any of this. It's not surprising given Bill's sexual history, right? This is not something that seems out of left field. It's all completely believable. And yes, it is obviously politically motivated, right? But like to me, that is neither here nor there, right? Like it, the facts remain what the facts are, regardless of why and who has released this information. And yeah, I don't want to hear anything from the Clintons going forward. Is how I feel about it, right? Like I find it disgusting. I find it implausible that Hillary didn't know what Epstein was up to either.
Yeah, that's impossible for me to not
Impossible for me to
believe
believe.
here.
So I mean, from my point of view, look, I did not have a high opinion of the Clintons to begin with, but like this is so far beyond the pale. And also, I'll be honest, I just have a little. Look, I agree with your caveat. You got to make the caveat that this is a politically motivated dump, right? That it was very selective. But at the same time, I just don't have patience for anyone that's like, trying to what about this? Like
Oh
it's
yeah, but do you think
disgusting.
people are though? I feel like
No,
everyone's kind of
no,
done.
that's the
Yeah,
other thing. Democrats don't give a shit about the Clintons at this point. I mean,
no, no.
even I think 2016 Clinton enthusiasts at this point are just like, yeah, fuck those people.
Yeah.
She lost to Trump. Now we're in this position. So no, I think they should be drummed out of American political life. I mean, what is your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like that, I think that with Bill Clinton, that you have this long history, right? It starts with all the allegations that came out, including Juanita Broderick, who is the woman who
Mhm.
accused Bill Clinton of rape. And that if you look at the Juanita Broderick case and you put it under the standards of what other cases involving these types of allegations are for a public figure,
Mhm.
passes the bar of credibility by a lot, right? Now,
Mhm.
Juanita Broderick, part of the thing that happened to her is that she, because of this whole situation, became like kind of a right wing MAGA Twitter account, right? And the people are
Mm.
just like, well, it's Juanita Broderick. She's tweeting all the stuff about trans people or whatever. Just like, I don't really care about that. Like, like if you're talking about the actual crime that allegedly happened, and we don't know if the crime happened or not, but that like by the standards that we usually have to judge these things in the public eye and whether we will take them credibly and seriously or not, she clearly passed. That situation
Yep.
passed, and people just buried the story, right? Jennifer, like just a long list of names. Like
Yep.
you were not old enough to remember all this, Tyler, but like during the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton administration, there was just this like drumbeat of women that would come out, right? And Jennifer Flowers, like all these people would come out, and that there would be allegations that Trump was having, or I'm sorry, not Trump, like Bill Clinton had some sort of inappropriate relationship with all of them, right? Now, I think that at this point, we can just assume that every single one of those stories is true, right? Which I think we should have believed
Can I
back
tell you a
then.
quick story, a personal story, Jay? I
Yeah.
am not old enough to remember any of this, but my wife's family was on the beach at Martha's Vineyard when my wife was a young kid, like 4 or 5, and their kids, the children are running naked down this beach, and Bill Clinton. It was a private beach. Bill Clinton walks by, and and my mother-in-law sort of like grabs her kids who are like running naked down the beach because the president's here, and he goes, "Don't worry, ma'am. I think girls should be as naked as long as they can be." And this was after the Monica Lewinsky shit had came
Oh
out.
my
So like,
god.
can you imagine? Like, you're in the news. Like, this is not long after that at all. You're in the news for this like inappropriate relationship, and those are the kind of comments you're making about like young children running around naked. I mean, it's shit. Like, he's a weapons grade slime ball. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and also just, like, clearly some sort of deviant, right, in terms
Mhm.
of all of this. Like, I just can't get over it. Like, I felt like the way that the whole I mean, this is me being a little bit of a prude, but I felt like the way that the Monica Lewinsky thing was processed was insane. You
Mhm.
know, like, it's just like people are like, "What? It's not that big of a deal." And it's, people men are like that. That's what was that was the discourse at the time, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the people who wanted to defend Bill Clinton,
Mhm.
but like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's a lot to
Yeah.
do that,
Yep.
It's a lot to like, any
As
workplace, it's a lot to do that,
Yep.
right? Like, in the workplace, it's a lot to do that, right? And then you just put into like, it's kind of an important place, even if you're not like, salute the flag like America. Like, the Oval Office is a little bit important, right? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
to get to that point where you're doing that type of stuff, it just means that like you're deviant in other types of ways. And so with
Totally.
Bill Clinton, like I'm just willing to accept the broad range of every single allegation that happens. Like if
100%.
I was gonna put it on Kalshi or like a Poly Market or like whatever, like 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 it's one of these prediction markets, I
Yeah,
would just
yeah.
hit the over, I would just hit yes on every
Yes, bam
single
the
one
over
of
button.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're like, yeah, it probably happened, right? And so with the Clintons, yeah, I don't. If Bill Clinton, I do not think this will happen. But like, remember last DNC, Bill Clinton went up and talked for like 80 minutes and just rambled on about fucking nothing, and everybody was rolling their eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
If they do that again,
Mhm.
right, that's like really, really bad, and it shows a core corruption at the center of the Democratic Party. However, I do not think that they're going to trot Bill Clinton out ever again for
No,
anything, right? And I
no.
think that Hillary too.
What about Hillary though? I wanted to ask you, like, what do you how much blowback do you think? Because I like you, I think she knew, but like, how much blowback do you think she gets politically for this?
I think Hillary probably is done anyway. I mean, when is Hillary ever in the news except for saying something that everybody gets mad about,
Yeah.
right? Like, does Hillary still have the ability to raise money, for example, if you want to go like behind the curtain and say Twitter doesn't matter and public opinion doesn't matter, right? Like, it's like all. I just think that everything basically has dried up for them, and that this just has basically is the this has to be the nail in the coffin for their any type of political ambitions. I mean, they're old, so like what political ambitions could they possibly have? But I think in addition to that, it just means that like whatever sort of like retirement tour type of thing they have, like where they go from arena to arena, people give them like a chair and shit, like that's over, right? I mean, if you're the president of a university, would you ever invite Bill Clinton to do anything, for example, right? Like, I mean, would you have
Yeah.
him come and talk? Like, how would that go? You invite Bill Clinton. Imagine you're like at Bates, right? Right. And not Bates, maybe, but like at UC Berkeley or something. And they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, today in conversation with like,
Larry Summers in conversation with Bill Clinton
yeah, Larry Summers in conversation with Bill Clinton, both
for a
talking to the
reading
new
of Lolita.
chancellor at Cal. Like, they would be shamed out of existence for that, and for good reason, right? Like, there would be no reason for that thing to happen. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think the Clintons are probably done with. And I think that out of this first tranche of stuff that's come out up until today, when a lot of the concerning Trump stuff came out, that was probably the takeaway from it, right?
Yeah.
Bill Clinton, you are canceled. Bill Gates, you're probably canceled too. Like,
Oh, the
why is
Bill
Bill
Gates
Gates in there
so much
all the time?
worse. Also, his wife met Epstein once and divorced him. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like it had to be so bad.
I hope that people will go through that with that lens, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I hope that they like I have never existed in this type of like stratosphere
Sure.
of wealth and privilege, right? But I can put myself in that situation with the reactions that I would normally have as a human being.
Mhm.
And if you have that, then none of this makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like what if you met somebody who lived in a apartment like that when you're living in New York City, Tyler,
Mhm.
when the first thing you did ask everyone you know who that person was and how they got
100%.
their money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then if they had like some mysterious teenage girls lying around, wouldn't the first question you'd be like, what the fuck is up with that? And then wouldn't your conclusion be, I'm never talking to this person again?
Something's up here.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want
I don't want
anything
to be
to do with that.
police rolling.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh man, I must be doing well because somebody is trying to frame me right now. That would be the conclusion that you should probably have. Steven Picker too. I mean, I'm sorry,
Did you hear the video where the girl in the
Yeah,
background
yeah.
is like, "Where are we going?" It's like it's actually just again, I shouldn't be surprised, but it's all so unbelievably dark, like much more so than I anticipated. It's just horrifying, you know.
Yeah. I don't think that I will agree with you there that like I think that at some point this has become such a news story and it's something that like we follow almost like sports, right? And sometimes it is like some of the stuff that came out was like or
Yeah.
like actually what we're talking about is not like a world change in politics, although I think it is, right?
Mhm.
We're also talking about something that happened that was just one of the most despicable and disgusting and disturbing things that we've seen. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I've taken this temperature from you before, Tyler, and I want you, because you're like sleep deprived because of the new baby and everything. I feel like you can let the defenses go
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
just speak honestly. On a scale of 1 to 10,
Mhm.
how real was Pizzagate? Where are we? Where are we on the Tyler Pizzagate was real
Look,
scale?
everybody gets some details wrong, like, you know, you're planning a dinner event with some friends and you show up to the restaurant and the restaurant's closed because you don't get all the details right.
Right,
But
right.
spiritually, Gate was correct. Like spiritually, it was correct. The details not so good, but like the basic thesis that we are ruled in no small part by pedophiles. Like I don't at this point look. I do not think there's like a sprawling pedophile conspiracy. I do think there are a lot of very powerful people in American political life who clearly were pedophiles. At least, Bill Clinton and Trump certainly seem to be. And then you had a much broader extended universe of people who are okay keeping their mouth shut about like a notorious international pedophile, right? And like yeah, so like I think the idea that our, elites are corrupt in this horrifyingly evil way, I think that's basically right. Like if you take that as the underlying message of Pizzagate that like there's this unaccountable cabal of elites who are sexual deviants that have a great deal of power and are, are not being brought to justice. That thesis seems to me right. I mean, wrong pizza shop, but what are you going to do?
Wrong pizza place. Yeah, it's
Where are you at?
you're saying it's directionally correct. That it's just
Directionally
within the
correct.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I go back and forth about this because I think that I'm probably pretty on the like I'm probably on the like this is a big deal more so than your average journalist in my position, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that like the sort of thing that we do and I think it's a good thing that we do because we have to, where we kind of try and deflect a little bit, not deflect in terms of an evasive way, but we just say, okay, let's make sure that this is real, right? And I am going to be skeptical about it at the beginning because that is what the job of the journalist is to be skeptical at the beginning, and then we can move on. Like that's a good impulse, right? And I had that at the beginning of this Epstein stuff. I was just like, well, how big of a deal is it? At this point, I think that if you are being a rational person and that you are not doing that and digging your heels in just because you are that type of like kind of like whatever, like ingrown person who does not like always is going to say, well, like, what about this? What about this? It seems not real. And you're just sort of a contrarian skeptic always, which, let's be honest, both of us are, right?
Sure. Yeah.
About other things. That the conclusion that you have to come to is that there is some conspiracy here that involve very powerful people, including 2 presidents.
Yeah.
That's the conclusion that you have to come to, that this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, was able to penetrate levels of, I mean, that's a horrible word. He was able to infiltrate levels of high society and very powerful people at a scale that you and I cannot actually understand given what the reality of the situation was, right?
Yep.
Like we can basically just say that like, hey, this is like, from our perspective, it would be very obvious that this guy is running a pedophile ring, or at least is doing something that we shouldn't be involved if we were as influential people, right? And yet all these people did, right?
Yeah.
And they all did, and they will It goes from the royal family of England to two presidents to the richest man, one who was once the richest man in the world, Bill Gates, right? It goes to people
President of
in
Harvard.
culture like
Yeah.
not just the president of Harvard, the guy who was running the economy,
Yeah.
right? Larry Summers. It goes to all sorts of people across any powerful person that you can imagine in any field, including like Woody Allen in movies or whatever. They're all implicated in this. They all went to this guy's house. And is this the truth of all people who are just like rich guys who have an unexplainable amount of money and whatever house in the Upper East Side or townhouse? No, of course not. There are plenty of rich people who are completely shut out of all of this stuff, and that's what they want, right? I don't know. It's like the plot of the Gilded Age, right? Like
Mm.
that's what the show is about. It's like, I have all this money, but nobody will come to my ballroom, right? But everyone went to the Epstein ballroom. And so if you believe all of that, right, and you take that rationally, then you would say there has to be some conspiracy around here, right? And what that conspiracy is, the roof is off on what the possibilities are. And that's the problem that we have, right? There is no implausible explanation for this, right? Like everything can be captured within the realm of possibility now. And when you have something that is this disgusting, right? When you have something that elicits this type of anger and emotions. When I saw that note about from that,
Oh,
what was clearly a young girl basically being, I can't come because I have soccer practice. I mean, you see red,
yeah.
right? And like a very primal anger takes place. And that's, I mean, like, man, I just don't understand how we get through all of this without some sort of massive, at least cultural shift in the way that people think about all these things, you know?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that, but I also, before we move on, wanted to ask you about the journalism piece because it's one thing that I've found. Um, it just feels like the media is having a hard time metabolizing this, right? And having a hard time figuring out how to talk about it because I think regular people look at the facts and very clearly see that there is some kind of conspiracy. And then the question is like, how sprawling and far reaching does that conspiracy go, as you put it, right? But it does feel like journalists are just habitually so worried about both getting out over their skis, having egg on their face, um, you know, and the conspiracies, as I think you've pointed out previously, like, there's something low class about it and like uneducated, that
Right.
really turns journalists off often. But it does seem to me that the facts are so overwhelmingly suggestive that the only remotely credible or rational conclusion is that there's like something actually really serious going on here. And do you feel like journalists are meeting the moment in coming to terms with this? Because it to me, like, I just feel like there's not enough people coming out and saying, like, obviously there is some degree of pedophile conspiracy
Well,
that implicates our global
there are
elite. I'm like,
laws, right? And
right, right.
it is pretty defamatory to call someone a pedophile,
Yeah,
right?
sure, but you can say, like, the facts here are pretty suggestive without saying this person did a crime and should go to jail,
I think
right?
the
Like,
way that, and look, this, I am always careful about this. And the thing
yeah,
that I would say something to the effect of like, it is difficult to believe at this point that
mhm,
somebody who had this level of interactions with Jeffrey Epstein would not have known about what he was doing. And if they had known about what he was doing, then the fact that they continued correspondence with him is fucking crazy at the
yep.
very least, right? So like somebody like Noam Chomsky, for example, in my mind, canceled. Peace out.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I didn't even think Manufacturing Consent was that good of a book, honestly. You know, it's just like I read it and then I actually refreshed myself. I listened to parts of it on audiobook
Yeah,
recently,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
was just like, all this dude is whining. He's like, it's like reading a Twitter account where all they do is whine about fucking New York Times headlines over and over and
Yeah,
over
yeah,
again. You know, and just like, look, I get it. Like, I understand that there is a linguistic theory here and that you're putting words together to make a case. But I actually don't think that many people, even back then, cared about, especially back then when like the New York Times was not like was not the only newspaper that people read, and that in fact it was much more regional than it is today, and that like me down in North Carolina was reading the News and Observer.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like I never read the New York Times. Like that, like the idea that these sequences of words leads to this type of thing, like, I don't know, that's a lot of the book right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
People have extrapolated from that and they have said like, you know, like, oh well, you know, and like the media is a vehicle or is an organ to try and manufacture things. Look at the Iraq war, of
Mhm.
course, right? But That's very obvious, right? And a lot of the work in anyway, whatever. We don't
He's
have to
also an anarchist, which is fundamentally unserious. I think it's also worth noting.
he was, yeah, yeah. I mean, he is dead now, but Chomsky is probably the line for me, though,
Yeah.
where I, in my head, without saying that they did it, would just assume that maybe there was something going on there, right? So Chomsky had a lot of interactions with, and he was on the plane, right? There's that photo of him on the plane. Maybe I think the plane is the
The
line.
line.
For
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
me.
Like
Now,
David Brooks was in
yeah,
that
David Brooks
dinner.
is
It's like I
David
believe
Brooks
he
is
went to
well
some
under the
fucking
line
dinner.
for me.
Yeah,
It
I
seems like
totally.
David Brooks just went to something,
But
not
like
that,
on the
no,
plane.
right.
Yeah.
Like David Brooks went to some dinner that he was throwing, and it was like, whatever. Okay, if you went to one dinner and like you have much more than plausible deniability. In fact, if all you did was go to one dinner, I just assumed that you weren't involved because, like,
And
it's
who
like,
hasn't gone to a dinner where a friend is like, "Hey, you got to come meet my buddy for dinner. You're gonna love him. He's awesome." And then you meet him, like, "This guy fucking sucks," So
yeah.
maybe that was the David Brooks situation.
I don't. People don't invite me to these things anymore, so I wouldn't know. It's been years, but yeah, when I lived in New York, it was, it was a little bit more like that. I would go and be like, "Oh, that sucked," and then I would yell at the person over text message, like, "Don't invite me to anything ever
Shit,
again."
ever again.
All
What
right.
does it
Well,
go with the rationalists, Jay? You have like Chomsky, Steven Pinker. Like there is like an intellectual milieu of people who like seem to be predisposed to getting on the plane. I don't know. There's like some like STEM and STEM adjacent thing going on. I'm just saying there's not
I
a lot of
wonder if that was
historians on the
because
plane.
that
Buddy.
was like what Epstein was interested in, or maybe it was because it was like the kind of they all knew each other and that they invited them, but I just think that at some point with that group of people that you're talking about, right, we should just move on from them because like there's not much insight there, and also like everything feels so corrupt, right? At some level, it's just like, especially like, I don't know. Anyway, let's not defame anybody and move on.
I do have to just note someone in the chat said 3 President Epstein party on parlay on FanDuel, which I think is great. All right, before we move on from Epstein, Jay. Okay, so you got Clinton, you have Trump. Between Bush and Obama, which neither of those are clearly implicated in any way. But if we were going to get a third president involved, which of the two would it be?
I think both of them are like almost like I think they're both 0%.
Yeah,
I mean, Bush comes from a very. I just think that Bush would just be like, "No thanks, bud," and then like like I it's hard for me now.
I agree with you.
I just and I think that Obama,
Obama's squared away.
They just didn't invite him. Not that I'm not saying he would have done anything. I'm just saying I don't think they even thought about inviting him. So I don't think either of them and then going back, I don't know, Jimmy Carter, I don't.
It would be Jimmy Carter because I don't think it would be Bush 1 either. Reagan doesn't seem right. I think it's old Peanut Farm. I don't know.
I don't know. I think the we'll see, I guess, as more of this comes out. Can I say the last thing about this, which is that I find that so this is all just happening, and so if it's out of, I guess it's live, and most people are going to listen to it's interesting because like most people just listen to this on the podcast tomorrow. But the way that things are coming out right now, it just does seem like it almost feels like there's somebody going rogue in the DOJ and putting this stuff out, and then it's because a lot of this stuff is just there for like 10 minutes, and then someone finds it. And my question is, how are people finding it? Right? Because this thing is unsearchable, right? Which is more or less illegal. And I think that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, who would be my pick for the 2028 electoral election, are basically doing a very good job. They've basically pointed out that this thing is unsearchable, and yet people are able to find some of these things that are very damning that are coming up and then deleted in 10 minutes. And I'm wondering if somebody is like, I just had this picture of what's it called? Of like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption when he breaks into the loudspeaker room and he puts the opera on, and then Morgan Freeman's like, I don't know what those two women were singing in what language, but and then they have that scene, they have the drone, and then Andy goes to And he goes to the hole and then he comes out and then, he's like, easiest 3 months I've ever done. Right. And it's like, I had the voices in my head. It's such a wonderful scene. But I imagine that, right? Like somebody in the DOJ basically being like on a laptop, being right. And like just like hitting send, upload. And then like the bar is going. And then there's like people pounding on
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Tampon and Cashadel or whoever are pounding on the door, being like, get out of there. Right. And then she's like, oh my God. 94% upload, right? And then she like texts like two reporters, like, there, look, here's the link to the place where the thing goes. And that it seems almost like that, right?
Yeah.
Because like these things are appearing for like 5 minutes and then they're going away.
Yep. No,
And so, like, man, I just got to say that with all the redactions and everything, John Gans has said those people, they're all deviants. Yeah.
such deviance.
Oh, no, he's talking about
Richard,
he's responding to
who has, as someone pointed out in the chat,
but
Richard Benani has gone to the mat for like.
I don't even, he has. I haven't.
Yeah,
I
who
haven't
among
seen
us
any of
doesn't
that.
like 18-year-old girls is the basic vibe that we're getting.
That's what he's saying?
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
he's been like, it's a conspiracy.
Michael Tracy is doing it for attention, I imagine, and I don't know. It's like it basically seems like he like rolls the dice and decides whatever the take is going to be, and then he commits to
I just
that,
want to say
It's
he was like
random.
doing so well on his attempt to rehabilitate his image, as like centrist moderate guy, but like go over his skis with the Epstein stuff. You can't go full contrary on an Epstein, you just can't.
I know. Believe me, I've considered how, but no, you can't. But yeah, I think that all this is going to keep going, and I will say is the closing point on this, at least for me, is just that they could not have done a worse job of putting this out there in a way that quelled the conspiracy nuts about this, which at this point is much more than half the country, right? Like it's like, oh, we're just going to redact everything and Trump isn't going to show up at all. And then suddenly these things are going to start disappearing from the database that mentioned him. Like the incompetence, like I would actually almost say like, well, this is all an op and they're doing this on purpose. But the reality, of course, is that this administration is so incompetent that like everything stupid that happens that makes them look bad, you just have to assume it's because they're fucking stupid and they don't know how to do anything. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, I am interested in seeing how hard somebody like Thomas Massie or Ro Khanna can push, right?
Yeah.
How hard they can push their colleagues in Congress to try and get more of this stuff out there. How many more of these, like at this point, we can just call them leaks, stuff that's like uploaded for 5 minutes and goes away, comes out, because it's a Streisand effect at this point where anything that comes out that has Trump's name in it is going to blow the fuck up because they basically made it seem like they redacted Trump out of the entire thing, which is what it seems like they did.
The thing so I guess if you were smart about this, I assume what you would do is release all the Bill Clinton stuff that implicates, Dems you don't like, et cetera, and then release some bad, but not like extremely like implicating Trump stuff, right? So that it's like, oh, see, we release bad things about. We've nothing else to see here. I guess that's the only move. I mean, what else are they going to do? They can't be transparent. I mean, some of the stuff that's come out about, particularly overnight, like some of the appearances of Trump in these files are horrifying. I mean, in one, this, I think it's a taxi driver says he was driving Trump and, Trump was talking about abusing girls. And then the woman, the young girl who made the allegation later shows up with her like head blown off in Oklahoma. Like it's really, really quite dark stuff. So, I mean, what are they going to, I just don't know what the move is here. I mean, you can't be transparent. I mean, the facts presumably are quite bad,
Yeah, and they've just basically created a larger conspiracy at this point, right?
How damaging? Before we move on, like how damaging do you think this is? I got a text from a Trump inclined person the other day, and they were like really like, this shit's fucked up. And then like later that day they were like, hey, it's actually really fucked up that like we have to pay so much for healthcare, and it's like, oh, now you're like a universal healthcare guy, but like how actually damaging do you think this shit is for Trump's base? Like
he's done. Trump's done.
Yeah.
Trump is
That's
done.
my sense. Like I think people, it does seem like pedophilia is the law.
I mean, I think he's done for many reasons. I think he's done with his own base because I think that they wanted something else and that they're all pointing out now that he didn't deliver on the thing that he said he would deliver on, right? Mm-hmm. I think he's done because of, a lot of his base and a lot of Democrats are not going to tolerate this level of fealty or support to Israel. right? I
Mhm.
think that's part of the reason why he's done. And I think part of the reason why and that's especially amongst the hard right now, right? Because that's the civil war that they're having is over sort of how much money and how whatever, right? It's about Israel. And then I think he's also just done because I think that he doesn't have the same energy that he had before. And that he doesn't seem to really care about anything. Like that speech he gave. Did you watch the speech in your like
Which one?
sort of like pre-labor uh time? The speech that he gave last Tuesday, like that was nationally televised, that everyone
Oh,
thought was going to be like about Venezuela, but wasn't. It was just like him listing off his
the economy is good. Yeah.
accomplishments. Yeah, that speech sucked. Like that was so weird. It was basically the whole speech was just like, "Hey, remember all this shit that I did for you?" Like it was like he was listing off his resume or something like that, and just obviously lying about half of the
Mm.
stuff. But like he is just more than half of the stuff. He's just lying about everything. Um, like what was the point of that speech, right? Like what was the point of it? Like it was like basically like it sounded like he was going to jail and that he was be his own character witness in front of a sentencing judge, right? And that I think probably had something to do with the release of the Epstein files that was coming on Friday. But you know what it didn't have to do? Like it didn't really have to do with ICE. I mean, he did, he was kind of racist and not kind of racist by his standards,
By his
kind of racist.
standards.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so like a 12 out of 10, but usually he's at a 15. Um, but it wasn't like justifying, it wasn't saying we're going to deport more people. Like, like it wasn't this sort of rah rah Stephen Miller, like Goebbels type of speech that Stephen Miller is giving now. It wasn't anything to do with Venezuela and how we have to stop fentanyl, which obviously anybody with a brain or can read a newspaper article understands the absurd claim to make. It was literally just the dude reading his resume in 1.5 speed. He was talking so fast. He was reading like teleprompter so fast. It seemed like he was bored and just wanted to get out of there.
Probably did.
Yeah, because obviously he has like, he's got some curtains to pick out and he's got some marble floors to, he's got a ballroom to build.
He's got to look at paint swatches, has to get home.
Yeah, and so he doesn't have the same energy anymore. He's not scary, I think. And I think what drove Trump and what appealed to people about Trump was that he was scary. He scared people like me and you, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
He's also not exciting either. It's not just that he's not scary anymore. It's also just like he's not funny. He doesn't have the energy. Like there's just also he's not defiant in the way like
Never defiant. Yeah.
2016 Trump would have been like screaming from the rooftops about this and that it's like a fix. He would have had some catchphrase he coined about like, the Lion Epstein files or some shit like that, and yeah, we're not seeing any of that. He's
Yeah, and
just
it's
out of gas.
I tweeted this, and what is interesting is that you used to have this whole ecosystem, obviously, of people of loyalists, right? And the loyalist ecosystem grew over time. And by the 2024 election, that loyalist, or at least pro-Trump ecosystem, had captured a lot of what was happening on social media and on sort of short form video like TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, right? And that like people like Aiden Ross and the streamers were all in Trump's corner, and that helped to swing young men. I think all of that was true. That whole thing fell apart immediately. It's gone. Like, who is a Trump loyalist at this point that
Yeah.
has a big platform? Maybe like Sean Hannity. I bet Sean Hannity will flip in the next few months here.
And when's the
You
last
know?
time you thought about Sean Hannity? I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
he's, I don't know, he's kind of
I
isn't he?
personally think about Sean Hannity a lot, but but no, I mean Sean
Jay
Hannity's
Kang,
pretty
Sean Hannity
like
loyalist.
like Tucker's gone, right? The hard right, which is like Fuentes and whatever, they're gone. Megyn Kelly, like I don't know what she's doing, but she's clearly trying to do some huge pivot. She's gone. Ben Shapiro's gone,
I was
right?
gonna
Like
say even
it's
Shapiro.
all it's
Yeah.
all and I mean Shapiro's more never Trump in 2016, but grew to be more of a loyalist in
Matt
2020,
Walsh also seems
2024.
more distant. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like the only thing left is the Johnny MAGA fucking Twitter account. I'm serious, right? Like it's the loyalists are gone. Like when's the last time you heard about Diamond and Silk, right?
Oh, I forgot about them. That they were classic. Yeah. Yeah.
Where are they? And so I would say that like the cupboard is bare.
Mhm.
It's gonna get barer. And I think that the thing that we have to worry about now is that whether or not it's going to matter, because I think that there is no question in my mind, if you look at all the crazy shit that he's doing, which is like basically like Kim Il sung, Kim Jong Un type of like kind of build monuments to yourself type of thing, that he sees himself as an authoritarian, right? But that he doesn't actually have authoritarian power.
Yeah.
What he has power over is to like do stupid shit like change the plaques on the fucking Hall of Fame in the White House. Did you see that where he put like
No. Oh,
I
yeah. Yeah, I did.
portrait of Biden, he put auto pen instead of his name.
Yes. Yeah.
That was actually funny.
That was pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, but,
Sometimes you gotta hand it to him.
yeah, that was funny. But I think that's the only that Hall of thing and the plaques. That was the only funny thing that he's done recently.
Sure.
You know, also obviously deranged, but that he's in
And I
late.
know that 2016, the auto pen would have been Trump's idea. I bet that was a staffer, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I bet it was
yeah.
too. Yeah. I don't think he has the juice
He
anymore.
doesn't have the
So
juice.
we have late dictator phase without dictatorial powers, right? But still a lot of power. And we have people like Stephen Miller in the administration and Pete Hegseth, right? Who can do really bad things. And,
Yeah.
you know, the question is whether or not he's going to make some sort of attempt to seize power or to do really, really bad things before he leaves power. And I think that probably will, you know, and
But do you
that
think he
the
has the
ability to constrain him has definitely been weakened, even if he is not popular anymore. Does that make sense?
It does, but he is unpopular. The thing I always go back to is that there are other Republicans who want the throne in 2028. He is unpopular. All the talk of a third term has totally, just gone
Yeah.
kaput, you know? And I just don't think, and a lot of Republicans have signed on to the Epstein stuff. I just don't think he has the power to discipline Congress, like Republicans in Congress, in the way that he used to. I don't know. I mean, I agree with you that he might try more authoritarian things, but it's not clear to me that, you know, you said earlier, like people like you and I, he's not as scary to like, you know, folks like us anymore. I also don't think he's as scary to Republicans anymore, you know, like as in Republicans in Congress. So I think he might try something, but they're just so incompetent and buffoonish. I mean, if you look at someone like Kash Patel too, I mean, the FBI is a joke. I mean, the attempt to find the Brown shooter, like they had to rely on some homeless dude who, I mean, credit to him. And I think he got the reward money. You know, he broke the case wide open, but like,
no, I thought it was on Reddit. I thought it was a Reddit post.
he posted on Reddit, the homeless guy.
Oh, I was homeless?
Yeah.
Oh.
He was homeless and like lived, I think, in one of the, this is a total tangent, but like lived in he was an ex-Brown student who I think lived on campus kind of in one of the basements maybe, and noticed this guy around. But anyway, like Kash Patel's incompetent, like Hegseth is incompetent. I just like, I don't know. I don't think they have the political power anymore or support or the, you know, I don't think people in Congress are as afraid of them, you know, and are people really going to want to hitch their wagon to, you know, Trump when his support is cratering? And yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I guess I just think that he can do stuff without any support.
Sure.
And that stuff scares me just as a citizen, you know, just given what we have seen in terms of the shows of force in this country domestically right now. And I think that if we didn't have mass agents, you know, out of shape, mostly agents running around with masks on,
Meal Team 6,
tackling people in the snow, figuring out that they're U.S. citizens, then driving them 5 miles away and making them walk through the snow back to where they came from in an act of just disgusting cruelty and unprofessionalism. If that wasn't happening, I would feel a little bit differently about it. But I think I've said this on the show many times, like that the sights of that every day have like really shook me quite a bit, you know, and they've really sort of made me much more scared than I would be, and certainly much more than I was during the first Trump administration in terms of what this guy might do when he actually gets in the corner, right? And right now he's close to that corner. And it'll be interesting to see if he just decides that he's going to try and the best case scenario that we have is that he just opens his ballroom, throws some parties, and steals a whole bunch of our money. That's the best thing that could happen right now. How ambitious somebody like Stephen Miller, or I don't really worry about Hegseth so much. He's just such a clown. But how ambitious those guys might get in terms of doing things like trying to start a fucking war that nobody cares about, right?
Yeah, but
That
which
stuff is
also the
pretty
Democrats
scary.
have, I mean, that is one thing that does worry me is like the Venezuela stuff because it's not like, I mean, there are definitely, of course, there are some Democrats who are decrying the illegal strikes, but there are other ones who are like, well, Maduro is, like, I don't know, man. I
Who is
think,
saying? Yeah. I think that once that thing becomes more real, like once
yeah,
it becomes like we're gonna put troops on the ground, that the outcry will be much higher.
yeah.
And
Do you think that's going to happen? Like, do you think that,
I don't know. It's hard to tell because it's like on the one hand, I think that they're desperate and they're going to try and do anything that they can to try and do something, right?
mhm,
Like they can't have this lame duck second term when they promised all this type of stuff when they're committing crimes all the time, right?
mhm.
And yet at the same time, it just seems like there's so little justification for it and there's so little public support that it just seems like, and it's so weird more than anything. Like nobody understands why we're like, there's just like a void of information about why we would even do this. At least like in the Iraq war, they're like WMDs, right? We don't even have a WMD thing here.
Well,
We
no,
just
they
have like,
called fentanyl the WMD. Did you see that? Where they're
yeah, I
like
know.
fentanyl to weapon
I
of
know.
mass
That's
destruction.
hilarious.
You would think if you were trying to prosecute a war and gin up support for it, the one phrase you would avoid is a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
found the real WMDs. You know, it's like OJ saying
fentanyl
he's going to
in
find
a
the real
cigar
killers.
boat.
um, all right, second topic. Let's move on. Right now, I did not want to talk about this a lot, but I think that we should. And the reason why I didn't want to talk about it is because I did talk about it on podcast with Gans or live with Gans and Max Reed that for some reason had like a whole lot of people watching because Substack like push notified people about it. But secondly, I think that I just like don't care so much about the media, but this is a bigger story than that, right? Now it has grown into a bigger story than that. And the story, of course, I'm sure that if you are following on Twitter, know anything or listening to this podcast, at this point that it appears that what happened is that Barry Weiss had a 60 minutes segment on CCOT, right, which is the torture prison in El Salvador that people have written about in her defense in the past, right?
Mhm.
And that this involves a lot of reporting that it was quite, and we've, you can watch it now because it was aired in Canada, and that I think I explained this before, which is just that like the thing that I didn't really understand about what Barry was going to do when she got to CBS News is how involved she was going to be, right? And that the more involved she was going to be, the worse it was going to be for her because she does not have the ability and the experience to understand how to run a big, sprawling international TV news team. It's not anything about her. It's just that she's never done it before. And the
Yep.
people who run these types of things have to know how TV news works, right? And so she basically does like a top editor's job and she watches the episode and she gives her notes, right?
Mhm.
Now it seems like she had 5 other opportunities to do that beforehand, and she did not do it at any point. And last second, she came in and she gave a bunch of notes and said, "We're holding this piece, and here are the reasons why." The note that she gave was leaked, right? And it was basically just like, we're not moving the ball forward on this conversation. The New York Times, Washington Post have already reported on all of this. If you actually watch the segment, you will find that that is not true. And
Mhm.
secondly, you will also find that there is a difference between a print story and a
And
television
video.
story. The
Yeah.
television story is much more emotionally charged. And so even if you're just going over the same terrain, there is a justification to do it on camera, right? Um, that's why we have different media forms, right?
Yep.
And what to me it suggested is that, look, you can crash in last second as a top editor. God knows that this has happened to me before, right? And that the editor in chief of a magazine, not the magazine I worked for before, but when I worked at the New York Times Magazine, one of the things that would happen sometimes is that you would get last second top notes and you would just execute them because it's print. So you can just change a few words and you can like change the order of things, do it, and even if it's late and people are frustrated about that, it's not outside the realm of possibility to do this.
Normal. Yeah.
Barry sort of comes in last second and says all of this stuff, right? And basically says we have to hold it. Now, the hilarious part of it is that like she is getting fried for this, right? People are basically calling her like really speculating, and there's some reporting from Michael Grimbaum in the New York Times that this was politically motivated,
Mhm.
that this was basically this might be a call that she received. I don't think that there was that concrete, but that there was some political motivation trying to appease the Trump administration because the Trump administration has to still weigh on the merger that her new boss, the Ellison family, has the proposed deal that they have, and they didn't want to piss him off, and this would have pissed him off, right? Um, so we have all that on solid ground. She goes through all of that, and the thing just airs in Canada anyway, and she didn't know. you know? I was picturing this really funny scene in my head where like her assistant, right, who like, and like the scheduling producer or whatever, right? They're sitting in this meeting and she's giving notes and everybody's pissed off and like, like the correspondent is zooming in from Texas. I think she had gone back to Texas at this point and just screaming. And this meeting is happening and the assistant and the scheduling producer are like kind of looking at each other from across the room and being like, should we tell her that
About
it's
Canada.
about the Canada thing? And they're like, no, don't tell her. Don't tell her. Don't tell her. Or like people are in a group text being like, bro, this thing is up in Canada already. And like, do not say anything. I just think that probably happened,
For
And
sure.
so like all of that, the new phrase the kids say, all that for that, it's just like, it's so funny. And now people can actually see this thing. And they can see what it was. They can see that it had reporting in it, right? It can see that it didn't need like Stephen Miller to sit there and lie to the camera, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know. I just think that it's a bigger problem for her than I think some of the contrarians on Twitter are saying. And yet, one of the things that I was thinking about and talked to a friend of mine about was like, will it actually matter given that her boss is the only person that she has to appease, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's how these jobs are. You have one boss and like everyone else in the world can be mad at you, but you have one job boss. So I don't know. What do you think about this whole thing?
I mean, I think I would echo your points and say it's extraordinarily funny. I think it illustrates something that there was a last week or a couple weeks ago, there was a clip of Tucker Carlson going around talking about Barry Weiss. And he was like, setting aside whatever personal animosity I have for her, which is considerable, she is incompetent and she has like no business running a newsroom. Like it's just preposterous. And I think that's clearly borne out. Like she does not know what she's doing, just as she did not know that this would already be airing in Canada. Now she has a ton of egg on her face. To your point, obviously there's something to be gained just by showing something on video, right? Like TV is a completely different medium. So the notion that, oh, the New York Times already did this, like that's all
That's what,
preposterous.
that's what TV news is.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, you're right. Her boss is the only person that probably matters at the end of the day. But I think when this started and she took the job, I think there was like some layer of people who were like, like, let's see how she does. Maybe like the free
Right.
press is occasionally interesting. Maybe there'll be, maybe CBS will become like weird and interesting and maybe like too pro Israel in some ways, but maybe it'll be interesting in other ways. And like, let's see, and she does have a sensibility for like sort of online culture. So maybe it'll like freshen up this kind of like more stale medium, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that layer of, and obviously you and I were not in that camp, right? Like, I think we both thought this is going to be a clusterfuck, but like, I think that layer of people is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, who are like willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. And that might not impact her employment prospects. But I think at a certain point, that's going to impact the CBS bottom line. I think, I think there's a real risk that the station becomes the butt of a joke. I think there's also a real risk that you have a significant employee revolt, and I think we're
Right.
already seeing it
Well,
because
seeing that.
yeah, because
Yeah.
there's like leaks every other day, but I think a more substantive revolt, right? Yeah, John Gant said in the chat she has no talent except for flattering rich people, and that is
Yeah, that
completely
seems
right,
quite obvious. Yeah.
But yeah, the list of non-rich people that she's charming right now, I think is really shrinking, So I don't know. Do you think we're nearing a boiling point for employees at CBS though? Because I mean, every time she does
Oh, for
anything, it's
sure.
immediately leaked. I just have to imagine at some point we're getting close to walkout territory. I mean, I don't know. Do you think I mean, obviously media jobs are hard to come by and there's, hard to find another one. So, I'm sure people are really reticent, but like at some point, I assume, things are really going to hit a boiling point.
Yeah, I'll just speak from what I know, which is, spending 3 years on a nightly TV news show,
Mhm.
right? There's a range of producers, and the producers are the people who make everything happen, and
Mhm.
the correspondents are they're just meat that goes in front of the camera. That's what I was. You just sit there, and a lot of the times the producer writes out all your questions for you. You just read them, you
Just like
know?
hide it,
Yeah, then you go back to the van and read Twitter, and like watch a YouTube video or something like that. And so, the people who are talented producers are not their names are not known to me and you,
Mhm.
right? Or to the public, but they are known within the industry quite well. right? Like, and they win like 15 news and documentary Emmys or something like that, and they know, because these are very specific tasks that you have to do, and it's very difficult to perform all those tasks, right? Like, think about a like a news package, right? A TV news package. You have to get a camera there, guy. You have to have audio there. You need to get your correspondent there. Now that's not so hard if you're doing like a sort of puff piece that's about, like, the old man who stands by the trains or whatever the Simpsons joke was, or by the ducks, right? It's like, some say Canada, right? Some say the ducks went to that pond and he used to sit over there, right? That's not that hard to do, right?
Yeah.
But let's say that you are covering like something that has happened, like a mass shooting or something like that, and you have to get to Providence, Rhode Island, and you need to like get all the people coordinated there, and you need to get your experts in line. That's one person's job, two
Mhm.
people's job maybe, and those people have to kill themselves to get that job done, right?
Mhm.
And so the people who can get from point A to point Z. There aren't that many of those people in the industry, right? Burnout rate is extremely high because of a completely toxic environment. Like, it's the most toxic type of workplace I've ever worked in, even though I had a lot of fun working there. And, I will say the toxicity was probably heightened a little bit more by the fact that it was at Vice. And yet I would say that probably the Vice nightly news show on HBO or whatever that I worked at was probably less toxic than NBC or CBS nightly news has been, right? I mean,
Mhm.
these are pressure cookers, and the people that succeed in them have a type of competitive sociopathic behavior that is similar to athletes. Um,
Sure.
and I respect it because I've seen it, and I've seen these people like turn around and get a fucking thing to air on time. And I'm just like, that was fucking incredible. Like, applause to you. I can't believe you did it. Now, those people are in very high demand as a result. People who work at 60 Minutes are the top of the food chain. They are the top of the food chain in that, right? All the shit that they did reporting wise, that's years and years of experience, right?
Mhm.
These are journalists. The producers are the journalists,
Mhm.
right? And man, I don't know. Like, it's one thing to say like, hey, we're all gonna walk out because we don't like our new boss, but like, there's not very many places to go,
Mhm.
right? Where are you gonna go after 60 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like position where, sometimes think about it. It's just like, well, because and this has nothing to do with me actually being like dissatisfied or whatever, but you just have to say, well, what if I left the New Yorker or whatever? It's
Mhm.
like, where are you gonna go? That's sort of
Mhm.
sort of the way the place 60 minutes are in, right?
Yeah.
And yet I do think that it's gonna be hard for them to sign new talent or to hire new talent. And what it means is basically, if five people walk out the door who are very talented, it's like losing your five best players on a football team, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've lost your offensive best left tackle, you've lost your wide receiver, you've lost your cornerback, and you've lost your middle linebacker. Um, might still have like the quarterback,
Mhm.
but like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're kind of fucked, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's what I think will happen, slowly or quickly. I don't know, and it depends on how the next few weeks go. But I think everything that we have seen in terms of reporting from inside CBS is five-alarm fire.
Yeah.
And the question that I have for you, and this is somebody I was chatting with somebody and they brought this up. I thought it was an interesting thing to ask. Is this the point?
Mhm.
Like, is the new ownership basically being like, news is not profitable, it is big, it is unwieldy, it's woke now? And what if we just turned CBS News, got rid of all the reporting capacities, we got rid of 60 Minutes, and we turned it into like basically Barry Weiss's free press?
Yeah.
And that it was just five people giving their opinions, and it was all around Barry Weiss. And that's way cheaper to do than like setting up an international newsroom. What do you think about that theory? I poo-pooed it at the time, but as time has gone on, I've begun to think maybe that this person was right. This is a very smart person, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, well, in that case, no, I mean, I don't know. I tend to be opposed to 4D chess arguments when pure incompetence suffices. I just think there's a rich idiot that runs CBS. He has hired a person who is, very good at charming rich idiots, but who is in a job that they have no business being in and don't know how to do. And crucially don't know what they don't know. And also seem to be pretty arrogant. And so don't seem to have the sense like, okay, I have this job. I've never run a TV newsroom before. I really need to deputize and lean on people with a lot of experience until I get my feet under me, and that might take a number of years. None of that seems to be happening. I just think this is all best explained by pure incompetence. Now, what may end up happening is that they burn all of the legacy programs and stuff like 60 Minutes to the ground. And then they have no choice but to do some kind of, you know, pivot that is more affordable, that is less reported, that is more opiniony, that is, you know, some kind of center right ish version of Fox News. That all seems perfectly plausible as an outcome. But like the idea that they're giving it the sort of private equity treatment and like stripping the thing for parts, like, I don't know.
I don't.
I
Yeah.
just think they're incompetent. You know, I mean that is incompetence seems perfectly sufficient to explain what is going on here. I also just think like, yeah, I don't know. Just like, this all just reads like somebody who got a job that is too big for them that they don't know how to do and they don't know what they don't know. And I think
Right, and that the person who is running the person who owns all this stuff now, I don't think they really care about the CBS News part. They didn't buy Paramount they didn't buy Paramount to get CBS News, right?
yeah.
Like it's just an annoying thing that they have to deal with that has a very high valence and a very high publicity, right?
Mhm.
But what they want is I mean, this is what Max Tanny said, and I think I agree with him when he was on the show from Semaphore. He said that, what they want is the library of films and TV shows and everything like that, right? They want that.
Yeah.
And CBS News is a small part of that, but it just happens to be something that people like us in the media talk about because it's part of our ecosystem, right?
Yep.
And politicians talk about because obviously it influences them. And so the valence of it is quite high. And I think that he was just like, I don't know, let's put Barry in. I like Barry. I've met her a few times and, her politics roughly align with mine. So why don't we just put her in charge of that? And I don't think that Barry, given that directive, would just say, yeah, my job is to strip all this for parts. I think that she wants to be the
She
region of
clearly
media.
sees herself as a serious journalist that's asking hard,
right.
like, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Erica Kirk in a town hall.
like
like,
fireworks and sequin pants. Look,
yeah, it's
I've
like,
been really opposed. Can I just ask a
yeah,
tangential question? I've been really opposed to. I think some people acted very cruelly and callously as they discussed Erica Kirk.
right.
People mourn in a whole bunch of different ways. But it is getting to a point with like the fireworks and everything where I'm like, this does seem like a bit unseemly at this point. I don't know. Like, that's the CBS thing killed me. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, like to see the whole thing, the interview was so like banal.
Yeah.
It was like it was like reading an anti-woke person yelling at 5 Twitter accounts, and that's like what the big interview is,
Mhm.
And it's like, can we talk about something real? Like America is arguably crumbling right now, and this is all you have to talk about, And like you bring on Erica Kirk. But yeah, I my sense of this, just to put a fine point on it, is just, and then I have a question for you about it. It's just like, all right, well, what is actually going to happen what's like, what's the actual upshot of all of this for the rest of us in the industry?
Mhm.
You have this dying, gigantic Death Star of network news. The infrastructure is huge, right? The costs are huge. They have people all over the world, and it has been dying for 2 decades, let's say, or at least 15 years, 20 years, right? And that the relevance of it goes down every single month. And, every experiment that they do fails, right? Like, hey, well, what if we did like a live network, whatever thing, or what if we went on, what if we did, like, what if we went on Twitch or whatever? Anything that they do is going to fail, right? Because like nobody cares about the institution itself. They would rather read something new, or they would rather watch their favorite Substacker on live or whatever, right? They would rather watch Aiden Ross talk to fucking Puka Nakua, right? Puka Nakua, his IQ must be like 40, like the dumbest fucking
Dumbest
motherfucker in the world.
motherfucker.
They does that like, are we all in that boat? Like, are we all in the boat where any type of revamp or any type of like attempt to recharge anything is going to fail? I think that basically the lesson of this is that, of course, we are, right? Like, we're just kind of in. Puka Nakua is Pukanacua. Responding to the chat for the people who are listening on the podcast. I think we're all kind of screwed at this point, like we're in a point where we are in a place where if we say, aha, Barry Weiss failed at revamping CBS News, like that's a very lurid and obviously like funny to us and concerning in some ways type of development. but that what it kind of means is that like the general thing that's pulling us all down is more powerful than like the small attempts to swim back up against current.
You know, I don't know, man. And this may be a perfectly naive um, take. I just sort of do think quality kind of does matter. Like I don't know. I think part of the problems we have across a variety of institutions is declining quality, not just in the media, but also things like academia and higher education, literature, et cetera, and when there's something that's really good, people do pay attention to it. Like whenever there's a really good article, like that Gooner article in Harper's, I mean, it goes really viral and a bunch of people read it and a ton of people talk about it, and I don't know. I mean, I think obviously there are a bunch of like fundamental sort of like economic problems across media that are not quality based, that are structural. But at the same time, I do just think part of it is declining quality, and if the quality were a bit better, yeah, I don't know. I guess the
Do you feel
lesson
like the people feel like the institutions now are associated with quality though?
No, that's what I'm saying. I think part of the
Mm.
problem a lot of these institutions have is they produce slop. I mean, academia produces slop, teaches courses people don't give a shit about. I think a lot of media produces slop increasingly. I don't know. I mean, I I don't know. I guess perhaps I'm congenitally optimistic, but I just like some tweet went viral the other day about Lolita. That was a really smart sort of breakdown of Lolita, and it went super viral, and a ton of people read it. And Twitter is not the real world, but it just does seem to me that when people have actually smart, interesting, high quality observations, people pay attention to them. And when movies come out that are really good, people pay attention to them. And whoever there are long, examples of long form journalism that are really excellent, people read it. And I don't know. I do think we have a quality problem, I guess. And I look at the CBS thing, and I think the lesson to me is like, you can't put an imbecile who doesn't have any experience running a television network in charge of a television network, because quality will go down and then just exacerbate the pre-existing fundamental structural problems. But I mean, maybe that's naive. Maybe the structural problems are insurmountable and there are too many internal contradictions and quality has nothing to do with it, or it's just like an epiphenomenon of success that has little to do with the underlying economic model. But I tend to think part of it is a quality problem. So I don't know. I don't look at CBS and think there's much to be learned other than like you shouldn't put somebody who doesn't know how to run a TV network in charge of a TV network.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's all of it. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think the smartest thing for her to have done is to just let the people just do their jobs and to not do things like give notes, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I just think that, like, if they put me in charge of CBS News for whatever reason, I would never give notes on a 60 Minutes piece, right? What I would do is that once a month or so, I would talk to the executive producer of the show and I'd just give general thoughts. But mostly I'd just be there to listen to their problems and try and make it sure that they could do the job that they do. Um, that's not like a crazy thing, by the way, right? That's not me being like the most magnanimous delegator of all time, being like Robert fucking Moses or something like that, right? Like it just means that I
You would
would
do
just
that
like,
out of fear. I would
I
be
would
like,
do that
I'm
out
gonna
of
fuck
I
this
would do
up.
that out
I
of
don't know how this
insecurity
works.
and fear. Yes,
Yes, yeah.
exactly. I'd be like, well, they're a pretty good show and people seem to like it.
It's like one
And
of the
also
things
there's
people
kind of
like.
a long history of this thing. And maybe the worst thing I could possibly do is fuck up this thing, right? That everybody likes, right? Like how embarrassing it is to fuck up the fucking legacy institution show. So
Yeah.
embarrassing, right? And so I'm just surprised that she was that involved. Like, right, to that level of giving those types of notes about a 60 Minutes
Mhm.
segment. I did not think that she would be this involved,
Yeah.
right? And then the whole new slate and the way that they are sort of promoting themselves in terms of like the way and what the messaging that they're putting out in the previews and the whatever stuff they're going to show up fronts or whatever it's called is all centered around her.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's going to interview Sam Altman. It's like, I already watched that. She did that before, right? She's going to interview. I don't think she
Is
put
she
Alan.
interviewing Sam Altman?
Yeah, yeah. So there's like all these people and
I
like,
cannot imagine a thing I would like less like to watch than Barry
yeah,
Weiss interviewing Sam Altman.
right. And so it's all centered around her. And man, I did not expect that either. I'll be honest.
Mhm.
Maybe I was too credulous about Barry Weiss, but I did not. I thought she would be more behind the scenes. Like the
I
thing
thought
where
she
it's
would do
like
like a
putting
signature project, like something
right,
like new and
right,
unrelated that like, I mean, you always joke about like Coleman Hughes running 60 Minutes, but like something along those lines. They bring
right,
out some like free press people to do like a
right,
Buckley style talk show or something.
right,
I
right,
assume she'd do
right,
something like
right.
that. And I would have probably watched that out of curiosity and seen if it was any good or occasionally
I would not have
interesting,
watched it,
but
but yeah, I would at least understood why it existed, right?
yeah.
Or if she wanted to posit herself as the new Buckley, that would be one thing, but that the rest of the infrastructure would still be intact. What it seems like, and why I think that the person who I alluded to's theory has some credence to it, even though I don't think it necessarily has to be 4D chess. I think it might just be like hey, this thing isn't going well. What if we just pivoted to this?
Mhm.
Is that I think that is that I'm just surprised by how central she's placed herself at the center of all of this, and I just kind of wonder if it's like I think about it just from my perspective, and I just think like the right who is your constituency where you feel like you should be the center of all of this, right?
Mhm.
Not the person pulling the strings. Like who are the people who really like you? You know, who are the people who are like, what I want is I want this sort of like vaguely centrist and hard to pin down person who just talks about anti wokeness and talks about how the children are all bad and talks about like out of control protests on college campuses. Who's that? Who's that population right now who's into that? Right? People want far right people who are horrific anti Semites, right? Or they want like Hassan Piker, or they want Speed, or they want Aiden Ross, or they want the New York Times and Ezra Klein and whatever, right? Like that's what they want. Like that's what it seems like that people are gravitating towards, these little like sort of balkanized pockets of media. And I just don't know who the free press was very successful in capturing an entire population of people and getting every single person who was in that little bucket of people to subscribe and give them $5 to $8 a month. They did a really good job, and I don't think anyone can take that away from them.
Mhm.
Barry's success in that. I don't take anything away from her. Like
Oh, no,
I'm
100%.
not conspiratorial about it. It's like I think she did a good job doing that. But that's a much smaller audience than CBS News wants, right? It's a much smaller audience than 60 Minutes. And I think that there is a type of blinkered outlook that's happening right now inside of those walls where they, don't actually understand the fallout from this type of stuff on an internal level is really, really going to be bad for them. Um, it's like it really would be like losing your middle linebacker, safety, cornerback, and left tackle. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm still the quarterback. You're like, yeah, but Miles Garrett is going to literally be shoving you in the dirt
Yeah.
15 times a game now, as opposed to five, right?
Can you
And now
imagine
you
seeing that? Miles Garrett, you're under third string left tackle. Miles Garrett comes around the corner. It must be the worst.
yeah. Um So you have that problem, and I just think that they're a little bit delusional at this point about how big the problems are, and typically when you're in that type of thing, you have a fast implosion,
Yep.
and so I think there's going to be a fast implosion. That would be my prediction at least.
I agree. Don't you think part of the problem is that they're in a bubble without being aware that they're in a bubble, right? Like they are like the guy who runs CBS and Barry Weiss are surrounded by people who have the same very narrow set of preoccupations that they have, and they've sort of like universalized those that like other people care about like schools and like what the dumb kids are doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think that's the case. I mean, part of it one of the reasons why I don't buy into the more conspiratorial read that they're like burning the thing to the ground on purpose is like one, like I mentioned, incompetence, but two, I find it totally plausible that they just have no read on what their audience actually wants or is interested in, and
Right.
they have their weird narrow set of preoccupations, and that they think, oh, regular people are really animated by these too, and we just have to give it to them, and I just don't think that's true, so I think it's a combination of like incompetence and being extraordinarily blinkered. But yeah, I don't know, I think like you, I was a little more credulous, not that I thought she would do a good job, but I thought there was I kind of didn't think it would actually be that big of a deal. Like I thought her presence wouldn't be as seismic of a change as
Right.
other people were banking on. And two, I thought maybe they might do something that was occasionally interesting, like maybe some other kind of debate show or something like that that might be interesting, or that they might try to bring some of the more like new media stuff into the fold to try to like liven up the brand.
Like,
But
yeah.
yeah, this is just a fucking mess.
Yeah, it's like somebody. pointed out that one of the things they'll probably do is they'll start bringing on YouTube. This is what legacy places always do. It's
Mhm.
called like I don't know what the phrase is, but it's basically follower capture, right?
Oh, sure.
And you basically you say, "Man, no one's watching our stream on ABC News tonight or on CBS or CNN or whatever, right?" And so this person has 3 million followers. So why don't we bring them over and they can bring their audience over and then whatever portion of those people follow them, we'll follow them to us and then we will have like 200,000 people watching the show and that's an acceptable audience for it as long as 10% of this person's massive online Instagram following follows us, right? Shit never works.
Yeah.
No one follows the person in the new platform, right? So
Do
you
you so, is that really like, do you think I'm
like
not a main dude of this.
the only thing that I can think about that has succeeded is Pat McAfee. But
Sure.
Pat McAfee, actually, if you look at the linear ratings for his actual show on ESPN, they're not very good, you know?
Mm,
Certainly not compared to his YouTube show. People still watch him on YouTube. That's where they know him. This is not saying Pat McAfee is not a popular character. He is, and he should be seen as the success example of all this because like he's a guy who has a ton of charisma, you know, like even doing
yeah.
like College Game Day or whatever. Like, I don't really like Pat McAfee at all, but like I
Mhm.
will say when he's like hyping up students on College Game Day before college,
He's
it's
fun. Yeah,
fucking
yeah,
great.
yeah.
He's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good
yeah.
at
He's
it, you
super fun.
know?
Yeah.
And his YouTube show was very popular, right?
Yeah.
Um, you can't graft that type of thing onto a linear or legacy news media type of thing, right? You just can't. Like we try, it's like having New York Times or New Yorker or Atlantic or any of these
Mhm.
places like take a Substacker and
Mhm.
just say, hey, here's a popular Substacker. Let's give them a column. All these people will migrate over to our platform. They won't.
Yeah.
They won't. What they'll do is they'll call the guy a sellout and never read him again, you know? And so, um, I do think that that phase for CBS is coming where like basically Barry and some of the other people are going to start taking some like streamers and stuff like that. And we're going to be like basically watching Asmongold on fucking CBS News talking about black people, right?
Nice.
Like, um, that's gonna happen, and you know that'll be death for all those people. The weird thing is that some of these big streamers are so rich at this point that they're just not going to show up. They're not going to
Yeah.
do the job, right? So then you have to go to a second tier of influencer or streamer, and those people don't have an actual audience at all. They're probably just faking their numbers,
Mhm.
and that's when you spend a whole bunch of money, and then the whole thing falls apart, right? And so that probably the next phase for CBS News, and then at some point, um, they're gonna basically AI the whole thing, and then and then it's over. It's just a
Dude, they
question of
are
how
good. That's
quickly it
where
all
this is going. You're right.
happens.
They are gonna AI the whole thing for
Yeah,
sure.
they're gonna
Like,
AI
you
it.
know how,
They're gonna be
the
like, we
first
didn't need
AI
that
actress.
producer. We can just AI it, right?
You know how that AI actress came to, like, market recently and all those, like, places were bidding on the first
Oh
AI
yeah,
actress? Yeah,
yeah,
they're gonna do that, like, they're gonna have, like, an AI news anchor or something, and it's just like,
yeah.
the wheels are gonna come off.
Or they're gonna try and like basically automate every single thing that the producer did.
Mhm.
So at some point you're gonna get an email from AI Tyler, and it's gonna be like, Tyler, would you like to come on, CBS this morning and talk about, and then it's going to be something completely outside of your field of research,
Yeah,
or it's going to be about some
and I
other
will
Tyler
say
Harper.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to basically get that, right? And then you're going to get 7 emails from that basically because like people can't, you know, like the bot is like fritzing out. And then, yeah, that's what it's going to be like, I think. That's probably coming for a lot of newsrooms though, the way these things work definitely is just that you have one person and um you have the person in charge and then everybody's trying to influence the person in charge so that they can move higher up on the food chain. And one of those people is going to be the AI person.
Mhm.
And as and the person in charge wants to seem smart, right?
Mhm.
And so they're like, how are we going to implement AI? And meanwhile, this person clearly has no idea what
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
is or anything about it. They just know that they have to do some AI thing. And they're getting pressure from the marketing department and the business side to be like, hey, what are we doing about AI? And then that's how you get that email, asking Tyler Harper to please comment on, you know, I don't know, fucking wolf migration or something like that.
Dude, I know a thing about trophic cascades. I could do wolf migration. They came to the right guy. I have wolf thoughts.
One of my friends is like an actual expert in wolf migration stuff. That's the only reason
Oh,
I
that's really
thought of
cool.
that. Yeah, he would be pissed if you went on instead of him. He'd be like, "Why is your co-host on fucking CBS? They didn't ask
Talking about
me."
wolves, talking out of his ass. You should bring a
Talking
wolf
out his
guy on
ass.
the podcast. That would be a really good podcast.
Maybe we should have him
We
on the
should, dude.
podcast.
I
He
have
likes
plenty
you,
of
actually.
questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, I like your co-host on the
Oh, that's
podcast, and
nice.
I'm like, you're the
Then
only
definitely bring
one.
him on. I know. Yeah, definitely bring him on. I wanna hear about
All
wolves.
right. The last thing we wanted to talk about was Philip Rivers last night. I don't know if any of you watched the football game, but there's a 45-year-old man who is now playing quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts.
He's
He has
awesome.
10 children,
And
and
grandkids, right?
he has a grandkid. And so it's been an amazing thing to watch. I just wanted to bring up on the show, Tyler. Like we were texting about it last night, but it must be an amazing experience for you
Mhm.
having a child a few days ago, right? Bringing a new life into the world, and then during one of these many breaks where child sleeps while everyone's exhausted, you just turn on
Mhm.
the TV and you watch like a 45-year-old man run around.
It's
What was your thoughts
awesome.
on Phil Rivers?
It's great. I mean, football is the greatest sport. Like, what other sport can you have some 45-year-old guy who's been on the couch? Also, they did this thing where they're like, Philip Rivers is in the greatest shape of his life. And then you see him and he's just like, whatever the
He
opposite of the
looks like
greatest.
me.
Yeah, yeah,
Literally looks like
100%.
me.
Yeah, exactly. Something, yeah,
I'm
exactly.
45 and that's what I look like.
Yeah,
My
and it's
face
like,
is kind of too like it's like, definitely
his
not as
face is a
like
little puffy.
not as lined as it used to be.
Exactly. It's awesome. Like, and does he look amazing? No, but he threw a couple passes. Like, it's both of his touchdowns were like, those were real times. Like, it's awesome. It's great. It's like I love it. I think it's why football is the greatest sport in the world. I don't know. I'm so into it. What do you think?
Oh man, I loved it. I mean, it's basically become like appointment television to see this old man get out there and kind of there's this like kind of sadism to it, which is like if he takes a hit, is he going to be able to get up? Because I know, like, if I took a hit from you,
Oh,
much less like a 6'7", 270-pound defensive end, I would not be getting up. I'd just stay down, and it would take me 2 weeks to be able to walk again, right? And so there's this thing going on where just like, can he? And then every time he throws the ball, it looks like it's moving at like it's like playing a podcast at like 0.75 speed.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just like kind of going a little slower than you thought it was. Um, and so yeah. Oh, Dave Hill, which one of our former guests said it did look like guys are taking it easy on him. I kind of think that was true too, because he did
Dude, you
take a
can't be the one that puts old man Rivers in the ground, dude. You got to
yeah,
pull up.
there was a sack where the guy just basically kind of ran into him gently, and then he just falls down. It's like it's not the same thing now. Like the defensive players now are so violent, like the way they try and punch the ball out. They're just
Mhm.
like doing full on haymakers in the person's stomach, and like none of that is happening to Phil Rivers. I think that if you were the guy who injured Phil Rivers when he was trying to do this feel good story, that I would feel bad.
Yeah.
If I like
You got to give him comeback player of the year, right? I mean, he must have that locked down.
No, I don't think
You
so.
don't
I
think
mean,
so?
no, he's only played 2 fucking games
He
and they
came
lost
off the
they lost
couch and is
they lost
throwing
both the
touchdowns.
games.
I think you
Anyway.
gotta give it to him. Yeah, I don't know. Also,
Oh,
I mean, his high school like, I think he coaches a high school football team, right? And all the images of them, like, freaking out every
oh,
time
no,
he gets
it's
a touch, it's like
awesome.
it's amazing. It's
It's
so good.
awesome. Yeah, anyway, this is my new theory about politics, Tyler, that,
Mhm.
like, we are way too into the like, the nerds have too much public power.
Yep.
The nerds can quietly run things in the background, right? It's okay. But right now, they're just like, we need to go back. I feel like, like one of the things that Rahm Emanuel did, for
Mhm.
example, right? When Rahm Emanuel was kind of pulling the strings of the DNC, I I am not a Rahm Emanuel fan, I should say, right? And this plan, by the way, did not work. Is that one of the things that he thought? He's like, well, we Democrats just seem like a bunch of pussies. And so we need to get some NFL players or former athletes to be representatives. And that's how Heath Schuler ended up in Congress, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember Heath Schuler? Like,
Mhm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like through like, I don't know how many games he played. Like he was just total bust. It's like having a Keely Smith run.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or like
Johnny Manziel.
Marcus Russell or something like that.
Jameis.
No, he wasn't even as hot. Like Johnny Manziel was really famous,
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
Heath
yeah.
Miller is just like kind of a guy. I don't even know when he got drafted. Maybe it's like the fourth pick or something like that. It was just a bust, right? Um, but Heath Schuler ran for Congress, right? And that was the idea that Rahm Emanuel had, which was that they should kind of become jocks again,
Yeah.
right? I kind of think Rahm Emanuel is like, I think that maybe we should think about that theory a little bit more, and we need to kind of jockify the Democratic Party a little bit and stop running so many nerds. I'm not saying this in a derogatory sense. I would just say that I'm also a nerd. I shouldn't be running for office, but like some guy, Ox Portello, who is like another guy on sports Twitter, sports Substack as well. He pointed at Tyler Shuff. Do you know who this is? He's like the new quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. He like did an interview with Andy Bashir.
Oh.
And Andy Bashir was like, "Hey, good luck." And then he goes like, "Hey, I really hope that you're president one day." So we have a legitimate white New Orleans Saints quarterback who is like clearly a liberal. I think he's the only one.
Yeah.
Right? The rest of them are like questionable, right? Like you're like, is Kirk Cousins woke? We're like, probably not. Baker Mayfield, absolutely not.
Definitely
right?
not.
Joe Burrow, maybe, maybe,
Jalen
probably.
Hurts, I wonder about pro-union Jalen Hurts.
I don't, like, we don't, every fucking show is like you talking about Jalen Hurts. But but I was just like, well, man, I don't know. Maybe we can get to maybe we can start running some of these guys, right? Like, that was kind of the appeal of Tim Walz.
Yeah.
But he couldn't
Until
really
he started talking about football, but yes.
He couldn't really sell it, right?
Yeah,
like,
no.
He couldn't really sell it. Like, he wasn't, like, clearly a football guy.
He
right?
should have just been a Minnesota beer dad, which is clearly what he is. Like a guy who likes to mow the lawn and have a beer. And that's fine. That's a fine thing to be. Democrats are also losing the Minnesota beer dads. He did not need to be like football guy, Tim Walz. I don't know.
Yeah. David is pointing out that Kirk Cousins is a notorious right-winger. I think that's true.
The funniest kind of right winger with his like big chains and his like sneakers and shit. It's great. Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is not. Yeah, I think that he's very religious. I think that's what the origins of his.
Is he
thing.
really?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson is super MAGA too, which is disappointing.
Is he?
Yeah. There's a whole thing that went on. I don't know if you missed it, but it was basically like, is there a quarterback in the NFL who would voted for Kamala Harris? And they went through all of them, and it's like, I think Jalen Hurts, they said probably, right?
Yeah.
Bryce Young, I don't know. I don't know. These dudes, like, you don't really know. They're rich, right? That's the first thing. And the other thing is that, like, they all have weird politics because all they've done is they don't care about politics. All they've done is play football their whole life. So then having Tyler Shuff show up and basically talking to Andy Bashir and say, "I hope you're the president." Pretty incredible. Like, we all have to get behind the New Orleans Saints, I think, as libs,
100%.
and like
they're already like lib coded. Yeah, for sure.
Are they lib coded? They're in fucking Louisiana. I don't know. They're like an NFL team in Louisiana. Is it because like it's New Orleans or something like that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think they're lib coded at all. Yeah. I feel like they're one of the more right. They're not as right coded as like the Cleveland Browns, for example.
For sure.
I feel like they're still pretty. I feel like they're still. I guess every NFL team except like the New England Patriots or the New York Giants or like the San Francisco 49ers. Like they're probably more right coded than anything.
I saw, somebody said on Twitter, Joe Cavello, who did like union stuff, like work with the NFL at one point, I think. And an observation he made on Twitter that has really stuck with me, he said, I've been in all these NFL locker rooms around the time of the election. And if you talk to them about Democrats, what they will say is like, they're losers. Like they have loser energy and I'm not voting for a loser. Right. And I don't think, obviously the NFL player is not a major voting block, right? But I think a lot of men in this country think like NFL players, like they think they could be old man Rivers out at the age of 45, like slinging the rock, And so I don't know. I do think there's the Democrats just do have like sad loser energy. And I really think, some people who could correct that a little bit would go a long way with some of their demographic problems, Cause
I feel like the other thing Rahm Emanuel was trying to do at the time was he wanted the party to move more to the center. Mm-hmm. Right. And like, basically Heath Schuler is more or less a Republican and he was a rhino, right? Mm-hmm. Or a dino, Democrat in name only. And he had all these troubling political opinions for Democrats, but he was running down in a district where they needed a centrist to go out. And they're like, well, Heath Schuler is famous within this district because he's from there, right? Yeah. Even though he was like a bust in the NFL. Like typically if somebody made like I know all the people from North Carolina in my area who made the pros, right? There weren't
Mhm.
that many, but like Brian Roberts, who hit a whole bunch of doubles for the Baltimore Orioles, he went, he's from Chapel Hill, right?
Mhm.
And he's has a certain valence to me because of that, because I grew up playing baseball with him a little bit. So, if he ran for office, I'd probably vote for him just because I was like, I know that guy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know. Um, I think that I don't know. I just think that there's a if we accept, which I don't accept, by the way, and I want to make that very clear. But let's say that we accept like the Simon Bazelon proposition, right? And that basically we need to go to the center, we need to moderate, the
Mhm.
Democrats need to moderate, right? And that is true. Let's say we accept that that's true.
Yeah.
They got to find some athletes to run then, like that's how I feel. Like it's like they got to find some famous athletes to run. And it's going to be really hard because the thing that's different from now and 25 years ago is that I don't know how much money Heath Schuler made in his career, but it wasn't very much, I bet, even though he was, as somebody pointed out in the chat, the number 3 pick,
Yeah.
right? Today, all the athletes make too much money, you know? And so, like, it's not like they're looking for a second career. They can just chill. They would just say, why the fuck would I want to be a congressperson and have to live in DC in like some sort of weird townhouse and then have all the staff and get yelled at on Twitter all the time? That sounds horrible, right? So you kind of have to find somebody who is ideologically or politically motivated. It can't just be some dude you pull off the couch, like in the movie Election,
Yeah.
right? Dave says, yes, the Democrats are running that famous horse trainer. Have you
Yeah,
seen that
dude.
guy's ads? Yeah,
His ads go hard. He's
yeah.
awesome.
No, he's the most
I'm
centrist
like
dude
0%
possible.
interested in horse races at all, and I was
Yeah.
like, "This is great."
Well, that guy is
Yeah.
like his the way that they've coded him is super centrist, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We should for next week, we should come up with like 5 athletes each that we think could run.
Okay.
Right? And
I'm
it
into
needs to
this.
be like somebody, it can't be a current player. It needs to be somebody
Retired.
that has retired.
A little poor, maybe made some bad financial decisions, so they're not just like sitting and enjoying their because they need a motivation to run.
Yeah. So for me, the number one guy was Jason Kelsey. Like
Mhm.
I was like, if Jason Kelsey ran, then
Oh, that's a good
yeah,
one. That's a
Jason.
very good one.
But
Yeah.
Jason Kelsey has no motivation to run because his podcast makes $1 billion. He's already famous,
Yeah,
right?
Travis Kelce, I think, would like low key be a total bust as
Oh, he'd be
well.
terrible.
He'd be
He'd be
awful.
bad.
But
But
Jason,
Jason Kelsey could do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So you
Well,
want kind
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but don't you just think this is athlete is like a proxy for likable? Like, I think like look at Mamdani. Mamdani is not like a man's man, right? But he won huge percentages of the young male vote in New York City just because he seems normal and likable. Like, I mean, I don't disagree with you that it would be good to have athletes running for office and that probably be as a baseline, not a bad thing. But part of it just seems to me that we need more people who are likable and charming and not like weird little nerds.
Yeah, that's true. But I think the athlete part means that they're famous, which I
Yeah.
think, yeah. So like Jason Kelsey is super famous, but he's too famous, right? Another name that I thought of, and this person would win any statewide election in Pennsylvania, I think,
Mhm.
is Brian Dawkins, the most popular.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't Brian Dawkins like the most popular Philadelphia Eagle of all time, at least in terms of
100%.
approval rating? Like
Yeah, the
nobody,
only Philadelphia Eagle with a positive, unambiguously positive approval rating.
like 100% approval rating,
Yeah,
right?
amazing.
But I think that Brian Dawkins is MAGA.
Probably. I mean, he was vicious, and he was like in the era when safeties could still really let it hang loose, and he's just like a violent
Well,
man. There's no way he's not MAGA. You're right.
I think that his whole thing is like, I'm super religious and
Mhm.
we need to like go back to like classic ideas of manhood. That's the only
Yeah.
stuff that he says. He's kind of like Hotepi, And
Yeah.
so it's like, I don't know if he's like the liberal dream, right? But I don't know. For some reason, every time I think about this, I just think about Philly athletes.
I'd like
Maybe
to see Aaron Rodgers run, not because I would vote for him for anything, but I think it would be very entertaining.
yeah. You want to talk about the stupidest man on earth, It's like Puka Nakua and Aaron Rodgers. Like the two
Exactly.
stupidest people on earth. It
Talk
sucks.
about
It's like
chemtrails.
I'm torn about this because I enjoy watching. I like Mike Tomlin, and I think that what he's doing is cool.
Mike Tomlin should run for office when he's done in the NFL. That I would vote for Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin, I think, would be too powerful. Like if Mike Tomlin ran for Senate in Pennsylvania, he would win, right? Like he would,
100%.
right? And so, like who doesn't like Mike Tomlin?
It's amazing.
But I think he's like almost too like you can't mold him. And also, I just think he probably doesn't care about politics. He just cares about football, you know? Jason Kelsey seems like he has like, because he's retired and whatever, he has other interests. And
He has thoughts.
he's clearly liberal,
Yeah.
Jason Kelsey. And his wife is super likable and
smart.
famous as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think Kelsey's it. Like, if they could get Kelsey to run for statewide office in Pennsylvania, it would be an interesting experiment because I just think that he would obviously win. You know? And he could be the new face of the party, right?
Yeah.
In a way that like is very like that video. And we can get out of here after this, but you know that, have you seen that video where like some asshole is following him around when he's just walking around and the guy's like, your brother, hey, like guy's trying to go viral doing some sort of bullshit thing. He's like, Kelsey, your brothers. And then he uses a homophobic slur.
Yeah.
And then Jason Kelsey grabs his phone and just smashes it on the ground. It's the greatest video ever. It's
you don't
so
even
perfect.
need to add anything. Just like it's a campaign ad. Just like
he doesn't attack the guy, right, physically. He just grabs his phone out of his hand and smashes it, which I actually think is the completely appropriate response.
Jason
and it's
Kelsey
what we all want to do when we see these guys like trying to go viral by being fucking abusive dickheads, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. He's my number one pick right now. But,
that's a good one. I don't think I can top that. That's a pretty good one.
I will say for the audience, because I'm sure some of them know, my track record recently in these types of theories is quite bad. Because I think my Stephen A. Smith should run for president. It's deep underwater right now. it's going bad, you know. And I committed to that one. Like I wrote a whole column on it, and man,
I forgot about
water. Yeah, that's old. I've almost given up. That on Kalshi or Polymarket or whatever. It's like that line graph is way down. Like that take is not looking good. So, you know, take with a grain of salt. But I mean, if you're listening and you want to, you know, do a little more engineering, then maybe you should look at some athletes if you really think that this centrist thing is the way to go.
Yeah. No, they got to get Kelsey. Someone's got to start a campaign for Kelsey for Senate, you know.
Yeah. Who's the senator now that he would replace?
Fetterman. Is Fetterman leaving?
There you go. Fetterman's not going to.
Can you imagine Fetterman on a debate stage with Jason Kelsey? It'd be so good.
Oh, man, it'd be amazing. Yeah. It would be Fetterman. I think Fetterman would just tap out, don't you think? He wouldn't try to run again. He would just be like, I have no chance, you know. I'm not even going to be the tallest guy on stage. Anyway, all right. Well, Tyler, once again, congratulations on the new child.
Thank you, buddy.
What a wonderful time for you and the family. I'm sorry that your paternity leave from this podcast was only 3 days. Is it 4 days? When was Mabel born?
A couple days ago, so probably 3 or 4 days. I don't know.
3 days. 3 days of. But for those of you who are about to call the NLRB on our podcast, Tyler wanted to come back. You know, I was willing to give him a little bit more time off, but he wanted to come back. And
yeah, Jay said I could have 7 days. But,
yeah, thank you all for joining us on this live. This will obviously be uploaded where, you know, the majority of you will listen to it tomorrow. But I think we're going to try and do this live more often just because I don't know, like it just seems like it's an easier way for us to do it. And because we don't edit the podcast anyway, so we might as well do it live.
Yeah. I also like the questions. The comments are good.
Yeah, actually the comments are funny. All right. Thank you all for joining. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Peace out.